you've mentioned we've been making phone calls. The idea was to find out the impact that we've had during the elections and sometime before the election. What are people saying on the ground? We had specific questions targeting civic education, the impact we had on civic education, and conflict mitigation and conflict prevention, because those are the three areas that we were looking at. And the ones that stood out were especially the ones for conflict prevention, where people would say, they tell you when there's like tension in our area and we were about, like, let's say, to go and mobilize, because in the first steps of violence, what we say is people mobilize themselves into groups and communities. And once they were in that phase and we got wind of the idea that people had started mobilizing and we sent a message, people are telling us that they thought like somebody was watching and they didn't know who. Now they became really suspicious and they just held back because they were saying, you don't know who's watching, you don't know if it's a government, you don't know whether, that anonymity of who knew that we are here and we've gathered. That is like, people are saying, we saw your messages and we're wondering who's watching, so we thought twice before doing anything. Another one that stood out was the one that I was actually telling Rachel yesterday, was the one for the religious aspect of you get a message once, and the second time you get a message, it's still warning you about not indulging in violence, or it's urging you to be peaceful, and you had an idea of mobilizing youth to go and do something violent. People would say it's a message from God, or they were linking it to a religious connotation and saying, because at the end, the message was written SNAK. There was no number. People are used to messages that come with a number. So they tell you, when some people didn't even know what SNAK was. And now later is when I was telling them it was Sisi, like, oh, we thought it was something else. People are saying it's from the gods. We don't know it's magic, all this thing, because it's at the right time, at the right moment. And like that religious connotation stood out. Another thing also was the aspect of assurance that everything is going to be okay. There's a period after elections where there was a delay before the presidential results are out. People didn't know what was happening. There's a problem at Bomas. We sent a lot of SMS during that time. One of the things that stood out at that time was people were saying, we felt like, oh, okay, we are not alone, or somebody is in charge, because you kept on telling them, just maintain peace, continue their businesses as you wait for the results to be announced, or as you wait for the issue to be sorted out. So once they got that message, they were like, oh, okay, at least someone is checking this out. Because the idea was, like, especially if you're not in town, in Nairobi town, and in the rural areas, they were saying they didn't know what's happening, the radios are silent, because it's like there was a media blackout to some extent. The media didn't want this time to announce too much. So once we kept on sending them messages, they said they could relax and at least continue with their businesses, and the tension died down, because they felt somebody was running the show somewhere. So the messages kept on assuring them. Also during the petition, it was 2 tenths. The same thing appeared again. They were saying, okay, so what does this petition mean, or how long is it going to take, or things like that. We sent a message, and they were like, okay, at least there is some person, and then also, especially in Sotik, they were saying, we haven't been forgotten. Because one of the ideas they were saying is, something happens, and a community is forgotten, and now they want to show that they're important, and they go out and start creating chaos so that you can be noticed. But once we send them a message, they're like, oh, okay, at least somebody remembers us, especially if they are of a small community, or a community that has been involved in the big issues of politics. Yeah, so I think those are the ones that stood out for me. Maybe Kevin has different perspectives.